Hi, I'm Joan from the Canadian Victory Garden, and as you know, we're doing the teaching garden with the help of the Master Gardeners, and this is John Montague, and he is going to tell us the value of having really good soil to begin with. So John, a big component of good soil is good compost.
A really good amendment for your soil is quality compost. Now, you want to talk a little bit about what good compost should look like?
Absolutely.
First? Okay. In front of me here I have a bucket of good compost. Look at the color. It's not black. It's a nice dark brown, maybe a little bit reddish brown.
Yeah.
Feel the texture,
Yeah,
nice and
really
nice and crumbly.
Ooh.
Good, great texture. Moisture. When you bounce it a few times, it starts to break apart. So just about right, about 60%.
Okay.
Look through it. You see there's lots of organic matter left in that compost. And I know I made this compost, so I know that it is about 98% pathogen free because of the thermal process which we make it under.
So when someone's making compost, or what 3 things would you tell them to do and 3 things not to do?
Okay, most people are more interested in backyard compost. What I'm doing is I use it's called thermal composting on a little bit larger scale. You can make thermal compost in a small amount, a little more difficult. But what most people are interested in is their backyard composting. So, to start a good backyard compost, you need to start any compost. You need 3 things. You need moisture, you need carbon and nitrogen, and you need oxygen.
Okay, and so how do you, what we know about the moisture?
Those are 4 things actually.
Okay, so what are some of those, what would be included in some of those?
Okay, your carbons are all your brown materials.
Right.
Having your stalks, your brown leaves that you rake off your lawn, sticks, small sticks, break them up, stuff like that. And then the next component is your nitrogen. That could be all your green, that's all your greens, your green leaves. If you prune a tree and you got green stuff on it, that's good. Your wet things from your kitchen, fruit, colored things generally are your nitrogen. So, and in a good compost pile, there's a ratio of those things. So, in general terms, it's 25 or 35 to 1 carbon parts or nitrogen. So, you need quite a bit of brown material to compost properly. Okay. The next
so don't throw away those leaves. Don't throw away those leaves.
Okay. Don't throw away your sticks.
Right.
Even up to something that's like a 1/2 inch thick. Okay, because I'll explain a little bit about that. The next thing you need is your oxygen and your water. So now you have all your ingredients. When we're composting, we're doing a couple of things. We're trying to mimic Mother Nature in a certain way, but another thing we're doing is we're speeding up that process by as quickly as we can, because we want that good compost.
Yeah, we don't have 1,000 years.
We don't have 5 years or 10 years or anything like that. So when you add oxygen to that allows the microbes in that to multiply. That generates a bit of heat, but generally speaking, in your backyard compost, you're not going to have too much heat. It's called composting, cold composting, or some people call it lasagna composting because of the layering and things like that. So, first thing I do in a backyard composter is I pick a good spot. Should be out in the open, not in the shade. I don't recommend them to be in the shade. I like them in the sun.
Because you want that heat.
You want that heat. You want that. Everything likes light and all the rest of that stuff. So you pick your spot, and I know it's hard in a city because so you pick the best spot you can, right?
Right.
You don't want it on your front veranda if that's the best spot, but you know what I mean.
Right.
So and then when you start your pile, those bigger sticks and things like that, put those on the bottom. And then put a layer of something like light brown matter, like leaves or something like that. What those big porous sticks and things do, make a nice little thick like that. They let oxygen into the bottom of your pile. Okay?
So you don't have to dig into the ground.
You don't have to
lay
dig
them on top.
You just lay them on top. You can take the sod off if you want, but it'll die out eventually.
Right.
Now, once you've got that, I recommend taking a piece of pipe or an old shovel handle or something, putting it right down in the middle of that. And then you start your layering process around that. What that stick or pipe in the middle of that does is allows moisture to come in from the top and also oxygen to work its way into that pipe. So that's how I do it. And then I start my layering process. So you've got your green kitchen stuff. You've got your sticks first, let that oxygen in. You got your brown matter on top of that. Then you start putting some nitrogen in. That's your first bunch of kitchen waste. When you do that, you cover it with brown material. Always cover your nitrogen with brown material. There's a couple of reasons for that. One, it'll stop the odor if there is going to be any, and it helps keep rodents and the neighborhood cat and all the rest of that stuff out of there.
Oh wow.
Okay, so now that you're doing that, and so now you've got a couple of layers, and you come back in a few days and you got some more stuff. So before you add any more things in there, turn those top little layers a little bit. Loosen them, just the top layers. Leave that bottom thing in there. You'll loosen it up a bit and stuff will fall through it, but it will still let oxygen in. So do that. And then you add your next green material and you cover it again. Cover it with brown. So if you keep doing that process all the time, and most people, if they're gardeners, will add stuff to their compost pile at least once a week, I think. Like your household pail gets, depending on your family and stuff like that, your pail gets full once a week or once every 4 or 5 days, maybe. I don't know. So, but you should always keep your brown material to cover that every time you do that. Stir it up a little bit every time you do it. Keep your oxygen going, and keep that going like that. I leave it there for a year like that. Over the winter, I don't add my stuff to my compost pile through the winter because I don't have the availability of the brown material usually. I mean, you can buy a couple of bales of straw or old hay or something and use that. That's fine. But what I do is, and I live north here, so it's a little bit colder, but I'll put mine in plastic bags and freeze it. And just out, I have a freezer so I can do a little bit until it gets cold enough outside. But I package it up, put it in a big garbage can, and I freeze it outside, and then I can add it in the spring when I clean up my last bit of my yard. Late in the spring, around after the 20th of May, I clean my yard up. Yeah. There's too many nice bugs and things living in there yet. So, anyway. That's a whole nother story, Joan.
Okay.
So where are we with the compost? So that's your basic backyard compost pile. Sorry. And there's all kinds of good ones. Tumblers are good that you move them. That allows oxygen in, and it all depends on the size of your. Like if you've got a little wee teeny yard, you're not going to have a big compost pile. Right. So you might look at something like worm composting in your kitchen or in your mud room or something like that, right? So, and to make good compost, it takes a little bit of work. There's no getting around it. You have to pay attention to it. There's tons of material out there on how to make good backyard compost. So you get as much of the information as you can. Find the method that best suits your size, and like all kinds of growing and things like that, Joan, everything's an experiment. You know that.
Yeah.
Like,
gardening is an experiment.
Yeah, there's always next year. Yeah. Right. So anyway, that's basics of backyard composting. But when you're looking to buy compost, the municipalities don't really like me because I'm not a fan of municipal compost, and it's not that the programs aren't really good and stuff like that, but it's what I see mostly is the non-attention to detail of making compost, and that's why you see a lot of municipal compost is black.
Yes, that's
and very wet and sticky. In general terms, black means anaerobic.
Right.
And when it's anaerobic, it's dead. So only bad pathogens live in generally in anaerobic soils, right? So when you're looking for compost, this is basically what you're looking for. Now this has been screened, so you know, there's nothing more in here than pieces of organic matter, say the size of an inch or by a quarter of an inch or something like that goes through the screen. Mm-hmm. So that's what you're looking for. Nice dark brown color, lots of organic matter in it. Now this is an older compost, so it's broke down a little bit more. Mm-hmm. This is what I use for my vegetables. Mm-hmm. It's broke down just a little bit more, but it's still a fungal dominated compost. So most veggies, trees, shrubs and stuff like that like a fungal dominated soil. Brassicas tend to like a more bacteria dominated soil. That's broccolis and those kind of things. So also, if you can, when you're buying compost from your supplier, ask them for an analysis of that compost, right? And always when you're buying compost, ask them for a heavy metals assay, because the other thing about municipal composting is that they cannot control their inputs. So, and you know, I mean, I know lots of people that walk their dog, pick up the bag, and it goes in the compost.
Right.
You know, that's a no-no. So,
right.
And these guys aren't picking through this stuff
right.
at the plant. It goes through a shredder or whatever, and the plastic comes out, and the stuff that's in the dirty diapers and all that is in
there.
So,
I mean that you could say that that's okay for flowers, but for vegetables,
yes,
this is what we're talking about specifically, because I think that it makes a huge difference. I'm not saying you should do it for flowers. I'm just saying for vegetables, it's more
but
you're eating it.
It's like everything else. It's buyer beware, Joan. So, but if you want to be serious about your gardening, then the first thing you have to do is you have to be serious about your soil. Right. Because we grow huge amounts of food and great crops, pestilence-free almost. We add absolutely no chemical fertilizers to anything and use no pesticides. If your soil is healthy, it protects your plants and it also protects its own environment. Right. So protect your soil and feed your soil. Good organic matter all the time.
Great. So could you tell us, boy, I always think that I know so much, and then I talk to you and I learn so much.
Oh, so, I know nothing about composting really, Joan.
But you know a lot about good soil. So one of the things that when you're actually incorporating it into your garden, is there any processes that you recommend?
At the farm, when we're doing when we're amending our hay, we just top dress it, and
so you sprinkle it on.
Just sprinkle it on. But
I always thought you had to mix it in.
Well, when I'm gardening, I do mix it in.
Okay.
Because I think it gets. There's another thing about compost. Compost should have a really viable, live, and diversified microbiology. That means protozoa, nematodes, flagellates, all bacteria, fungi, all those things. So when you have a good mature compost, it has those things in it already. So when you mix it in, you're inoculating your soil with that good biology. So the organic matter and stuff that's in your soil originally, this will fire all that up again. And it's the bacteria, it's the biology that transfers those nutrients from your soil to your plants. Another thing with the good biology, good bacteria and fungi tend to coat the roots. We know about mycorrhizae, fungi and stuff like that. They actually infiltrate root cells and connect themselves right inside those root cells. So lots of times I've seen people, oh, look at the roots on this plant. Yes, the great roots, but that fine hairy network is actually fungi that's attached to those roots and drawing and making that a huge network to draw nutrients from. So that microbiology in your compost is really important, and I always ask your compost supplier for analysis, because a good composter will have that done by a lab. We have our own lab. We keep track of stuff, but we also send it out because then it's somebody else's word, right?
Right.
So compost analysis if you can, heavy metals analysis if you can when you're buying compost. And if they won't give you the heavy metals stuff, don't buy the compost.
Oh.
Don't take the compost.
Right.
Now, lots of guys won't spend the money on the biology tests. They still have great compost, but they'll do the cheaper heavy metals thing. So, heavy metals test for sure.
So we have a few people who are observing us. Would you mind if we take a question?
No, if I can answer.
Okay, Kathy, do you have a question? I know you're a great compost, right? I'm always jealous of Kathy's.
These guys sound like they really
seriously.
Seriously, and they do it, and it sounds like they do it right.
We're just wondering what the ratio of compost to when you're amending your soil.
When you're amending,
put in?
Okay. Rule of thumb is good compost also can contain lots of salts, different kinds of mineral salts. So I don't recommend using straight compost to grow anything on. My basic rule of thumb is if you're breaking a new garden in that's you've cut the sod off and it's all lumpy and all that stuff and hard and compacted, like I know what urban soils are like because there isn't any.
Right.
So you can actually turn that rough clay little bit of topsoil into decent soil by amending it, but it's a long process. Anyway, new gardens, I recommend 2 parts of your soil to 1 part compost for the first year. 2 to 1.
For the first year.
Yeah,
that's the starting.
And then you're going to. It might go 2 years. You're going to feel your soil and you're going to look at it and see where it is. But you can take this heavy clay soil that's here like this, and actually we amended this last year. Well, that one hasn't been amended.
Oh, okay. All right. Go.
Over here, and you can see that.
Oh yeah.
You can see the aggregation in it, and the worms. Lots of when you've got the red wigglers and the worms, you've got good biology going on. They're a very important part of the food chain. But you see how that's nice and crumbly, and when you step on it, Joan, it's still spongy.
Yeah.
So that soil's well on its way to be really, really good.
And so that's 1 year.
That's 1 year, and we did 2 parts soil to 1 part compost on that day.
So with this one being 1 year, so it's not starting.
Yeah.
What would be the?
That looks like to me, because the soil here wasn't too bad.
Right.
It's a good clay loam soil here, but it was very compacted.
Right.
So this, I would go 3 parts soil to 1 part compost on this. Right. And depending on what you're growing on that, you might not need to do that again till the following year again. Right. Because compost is a long-term feeder.
Right. So just keep an eye on the that's great.
Yeah. And we're going to have a soil workshop here this summer,
June 7th,
and we're going to talk about all of that stuff and how everybody in their own backyard can do their own soil tests. And when you find out what kind of soil you have, then you can find out how to amend it, and you can grow great plants, chemical free.
Wonderful. So do you have a question for composting?
I think he answered everything I would have thought to ask.
Oh, great. Great. Well, there you go.
All right.
So now you have a question.
John has any ideas on a simple screening device to...
I have made several simple screening devices. My favorite, we all know what hardware cloth is, right? You know hardware cloth, it's like a heavy duty screen. You can get it in 2-inch squares, 1/2-inch squares, or 1/4-inch squares. And it's a galvanized metal, and I think it's maybe 2 or 3 feet wide, and it comes in a roll, right? You can go to your local hardware store and buy some. You don't need to go to the box store. Anyway, make yourself a 3-foot rack out of, or a 4-foot by however wide the cloth is, and if it's, or 5 feet, whatever, and just simply one end on the ground. So you're going to make a thing like this. This is going to be your screen. It's this wide, and you have a leg on it like this. Your compost is over here, and you just throw it against the screen. And you get it on a pretty good angle like this, and if your compost is loosened up when you're doing it, the heavy chunks will fall down on the bottom. You take those, of course, because they've already got that good bacteria and that good microbiology on those bigger sticks. You put them right back in your other compost pile. That's more biology, faster breakdown.
So don't throw it away.
Don't throw it away. Just reuse it. The next time you do that, those pieces will be half as big.
So you're using a leveraging system.
Yeah, just so the weight will fall down through it. Now, depending on the size of your compost, will depend on and what you're using it for, how fine you want to screen it.